No, O King of the age, that most marvelous was that which befell me but yesterday, before I foregathered with the hunchback. It so chanced that in the early day I was at the marriage feast of one of my companions, who had gotten together in his house some 20 of the handicraftsmen of this city, amongst them tailors and silk spinners and carpenters and others of the same kidney. As soon as the sun had risen, they set food before us that we might eat, when behold, the master of the house entered, and with him a foreign youth and a well-favored of the people of Baghdad, wearing clothes as handsome could be, and he was of right comely presence save that he was lame of one leg. He came and saluted us and we stood up to receive him, but when he was about to sit down he espied amongst us a certain man which was a barber, whereupon he refused to be seated and would have gone away. But we stopped him and our host also stayed him, making oath that he should not leave us, and asked him, "What is the reason of thy coming in and going out again at once?" Whereto he answered, "By Allah, O my lord, do not hinder me, for the cause of my turning back is yon barber of bad omen, yon black of face, yon ne'er-do-well." When the housemaster heard these words he marveled with extreme marvel and said, "How cometh this young man, who haileth from Baghdad, to be so troubled and perplexed about this barber?" Then we looked at the stranger and said, "Explain the cause of thine anger against the barber." "O fair company," quoth the youth, "there befell me a strange adventure with this barber in Baghdad, which is my native city. He was the cause of the breaking of my leg and of my lameness, and I have sworn never to sit in the same place with him, nor even tarry in any town where he happens to abide, and I have bidden adieu to Baghdad and travelled far from it and came to stay in this your city, yet I have hardly passed one night before I meet him again. But not another day shall go by ere I fare forth from here." Said we to him, "Allah upon thee, tell us the tale," and the youth replied, the barber changing color from brown to yellow as he spoke, "Know, O fair company, that my father was one of the chief merchants of Baghdad, and Almighty Allah had blessed him with no son but myself. When I grew up and reached man's estate, my father was received into the mercy of Allah, whose name be exalted, and left me money and eunuchs, servants and slaves, and I used to dress well and diet well. Now Allah had made me a hater of womankind, and one day, as I was walking along a street in Baghdad, a party of females met me face to face in the footway, so I fled from them and, entering an alley which was no thoroughfare, sat down upon a stone bench at its other end. I had not sat there long before the latticed window of one of the houses opposite was thrown open, and there appeared at it a young lady, as she were the full moon at its fullest. Never in my life saw I her like, and she began to water some flowers on the window sill. She turned right and left and, seeing me watching her, shut the window and went away. Thereupon fire was suddenly enkindled in my heart, my mind was possessed with her, and my woman hate turned to woman love. I continued sitting there, lost to the world, till sunset, when lo! The Qazi of the city came riding by with his slaves before him and his eunuchs behind him, and dismounting entered the house in which the damsel had appeared. By this I knew that he was her father, so I went home sorrowful and cast myself upon my carpet bed in grief. Then my handmaids flocked in and sat about me, unknowing what ailed me, but I addressed no speech to them, and they wept and wailed over me. Presently in came an old woman who looked at me and saw with a glance what was the matter with me, so she sat down by my head and spoke me fair, saying, "O my son, tell me all about it and I will be the means of thy union with her." So I related to her what had happened, and she answered, "O my son, this one is the daughter of the Qazi of Baghdad, who keepeth her in the closest seclusion, and the window where thou sawest her is her floor, whilst her father occupies the large saloon in the lower story. She is often there alone, and I am wont to visit at the house, so thou shalt not win to her save through me. Now set thy wits to work and be of good cheer." With these words she went away, and I took heart at what she said, and my people rejoiced that day, seeing me rise in the morning safe and sound. By and by the old woman returned looking chopfallen, and said, "O my son, do not ask me how I fared with her." When I told her that, she cried at me, "If thou hold not thy peace, O hag of ill omen, and leave not such talk, I will entreat thee as thou deservest and do thee die by the foulest of deaths." But needs must I have at her a second time. When I heard this it added ailment to my ailment, and the neighbors visited me and judged that I was not long for this world, but after some days, the old woman came to me and, putting her mouth close to my ear, whispered, "O my son, I claim from thee the gift of good news." With this my soul returned to me and I said, "Whatever thou wilt shall be thine." Thereupon she began, "Yesterday I went to the young lady who, seeing me broken in spirit and shedding tears from reddened eyes, asked me, 'O Nanti mine, what ails thee, that I see thy breast so straitened?' And I answered her, weeping bitterly, 'O my lady, I am just come from the house of a youth who loves thee and who is about to die for sake of thee.' Quoth she, and her heart was softened, 'And who is this youth of whom thou speakest?' And quoth I, 'He is to me as a son and the fruit of my vitals. He saw thee, some days ago, at the window watering thy flowers, and espying thy face and wrist he fell in love at first sight. I let him know what happened to me the last time I was with thee, whereupon his ailment increased, he took to the pillow and he is not now but a dead man, and no doubt whatever of it.' At this she turned pale and asked, 'All this for my sake?' And I answered, 'Ay, by Allah! What wouldst thou have me do?' Said she, 'Go back to him and greet him for me and tell him that I am twice more heartsick than he is. And on Friday, before the hour of public prayer, bid him here to the house, and I will come down and open the door for him. Then I will carry him up to my chamber and foregather with him for a while, and let him depart before my father return from the mosque.' When I heard the old woman's words, all my sickness suddenly fell from me, my anguish ceased and my heart was comforted. I took off what clothes were on me and gave them to her and, as she turned to go, she said, 'Keep a good heart.' 'I have not a jot of sorrow left,' I replied. My household and intimates rejoiced in my recovery and I abode thus till Friday, when behold, the old woman came in and asked me how I did, to which I answered that I was well and in good case. Then I donned my clothes and perfumed myself and sat down to await the congregation going into prayers, that I might betake myself to her. But the old woman said to me, 'Thou hast time and to spare, so thou wouldst do well to go to the hammam and have thy hair shaven off, especially after thy ailment, so as not to show traces of sickness.' 'This were the best way,' answered I have just now bathed in hot water, but I will have my head shaved.' Then I said to my page, 'Go to the bazaar and bring me a barber, a discreet fellow and one not inclined to meddling or impertinent curiosity or likely to split my head with his excessive talk.' The boy went out at once and brought back with him this wretched old man, this sheikh of ill omen. When he came in he saluted me and I returned his salutation, then quoth he, 'Of a truth I see thee thin of body,' and quoth I have been ailing," he continued, "Allah drive far away from thee thy woe and thy sorrow and thy trouble and thy distress." "Allah grant thy prayer," said I. He pursued, "All gladness to thee, O my master, for indeed recovery is come to thee. Dost thou wish to be polled or to be blooded?" Indeed it was a tradition of Ibn Abbas, Allah accept of him, that the apostle said, "Whoso cutteth his hair on a Friday, the Lord shall avert from him 70 calamities," and again is related of him also that he said, "Cupping on a Friday keepeth from loss of sight and a host of diseases." "Leave this talk," I cried, "come, shave me my head at once for I can't stand it." So he rose and put forth his hand in most leisurely way and took out a kerchief and unfolded it, and lo! It contained an astrolabe with 7 parallel plates mounted in silver. Then he went to the middle of the court and raised head and instrument towards the sun's rays and looked for a long while. When this was over, he came back and said to me, "Know that there have elapsed of this our day, which be Friday, and this Friday be the 10th of the month Safar in the 653rd year since the Hijrah or flight of the Apostle, on whom be the bestest of blessings and peace, and the 7320th year of the era of Alexander, 8 degrees and 6 minutes. Furthermore the ascendant of this our day is, according to the exactest science of computation, the planet Mars, and it so happeneth that Mercury is in conjunction with him, denoting an auspicious moment for haircutting, and this also maketh manifest to me that thou desirest union with a certain person and that your intercourse will not be propitious. But after this there occurreth a sign respecting a matter which will befall thee and whereof I will not speak." "O thou," cried I, "by Allah, thou weariest me and scatterest my wits and thy forecast is other than good, I sent for thee to poll my head and not else, sew up and shave me and prolong not thy speech. By Allah, replied he, if thou but knew what is about to befall thee, thou wouldst do nothing this day, and I counsel thee to act as I tell thee by computation of the constellations. By Allah, said I, never did I see a barber who excelled in judicial astrology save thyself, but I think and I know that thou art most prodigal of frivolous talk. I sent for thee only to shave my head, but thou comest and pesterest me with this sorry prattle. What more wouldst thou have? Replied he. Allah hath bounteously bestowed on thee a barber, who is an astrologer, one learned in alchemy and white magic, syntax, grammar, and lexicology, the arts of logic, rhetoric and elocution, mathematics, arithmetic and algebra, astronomy, astromancy and geometry, theology, the traditions of the Apostle and the commentaries on the Quran. Furthermore, I have read books galore and digested them and have had experience of affairs and comprehended them. In short, I have learned the theoric and the practic of all the arts and sciences, I know everything of them by rote and I am a past master in tota re sabili. Thy father loved me for my lack of officiousness, Argyle, to serve thee is a religious duty incumbent on me. I am no busybody as thou seemest to suppose, and on this account I am known as the silent man, also, the modest man. Wherefore it behoveth thee to render thanks to Allah Almighty and not cross me, for I am a true counselor to thee and benevolently minded towards thee. Would that I were in thy service a whole year that thou mightest do me justice, and I would ask thee no wage for all this. When I heard his flow of words, I said to him, doubtless thou wilt be my death this day. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Now when it was the 30th night,